Your lecturer is Eric Williams. Mr. Williams is a professor in the School of Media Arts and Studies at Ohio University, where he teaches courses on screenwriting, film, and virtual reality production. He earned his Master of Fine Arts degree in film from Columbia University. Mr. Williams has written 2 books and more than 30 screenplays, and he has produced and directed for companies such as Fox Interactive and Universal Studios. At Ohio University, he has received the University Professor Award and was a finalist for the Presidential Teacher Award.
My name's Jimmy Stewart. Before I came home, and out here in Hollywood, Shirley Temple.
I'm for it.
Truly. First, Brother Rat, you take a few orders for me. Get him up. I'm gonna arrest him.
Brother Rat, you take
A few orders for me. Get him up.
Fine, great.
Films are great, aren't they? I mean, really, if you think about it, film as an art form helps us define our experience of the entire world and other worlds. I grew up in an era where there were lines around the block to see Star Wars. And in the summers, the Ohio Theater in downtown Columbus would show classic movies like Lawrence of Arabia on 70mm film with a live orchestra. I mean, now you can watch a film on your cell phone on the subway. When I talk about movies, when I really talk about films, I'm talking about watching them on the big screen with Dolby 7.1 surround sound, surrounded by other people, the ones you love, the complete strangers, all of us enjoying a common story that looms above you on the silver screen. The silver screen. I mean, you know, that's one of the reasons why I believe film is such a unique art form. It's all a mirage, an illusion of light, the silver screen. It actually used to have silver on it to help reflect the light from the projector into the eyes of the audience. But get this, and I think this is absolutely fascinating. Film, as you know, is really a series of still images projected to create the illusion of movement. Film is projected at a rate of 24 frames per second, which means that the film gets pulled along every 1/48th of a second, not every 1/24th. And here's why, and this is what I find really interesting. In order for the 24 frames to be seen each and every second, first the film frame is seen. That's the first 24th. Then a shutter falls in front of the light source while the film is then moved. That's the second 24th. And then the next frame is in place and it can be seen. That's the third 24th. And this pattern continues. Each alternating fraction of a second is first light and then darkness. Light, darkness. Light, darkness. And what that means is that if you're watching a 2-hour film in the theater, then you're really sitting in complete darkness for an hour. You don't notice it because your brain is remembering the image from the light, but every 24th of a second, the theater is bathed in complete darkness. And while that little fact isn't widely known, and with digital projectors it doesn't even happen, I think that this subconsciously affects the film-going audience, and it really makes the experience great. That's why it's so unique. And there's many other reasons as well. And that's going to be the central thrust of this lecture as we open up this course on great movies. And as we set the stage for our deep dive into legendary filmmaking, I want us to consider some fundamental questions. First, what sets film apart as an art form? Second, what is the unifying purpose of the creative process of filmmaking? And third, what defines the driving creative force within films? In the art of film, who is the artist? Is there an artist? But let's begin with what sets narrative films apart from all other artistic endeavors, while at the same time, let's also explore some of the similarities. Story. That's a good place to start. Narrative films tell stories, typically through characters and events. But so does theater. The actor, center stage, brightly lit, prop in hand, the audience riveted. But why? At what? Theater gives the audience freedom. Yes, there's a script, and yes, there's a set and actors. But we, as the audience, we get to choose what to look at, which characters to watch, how close we want to pay attention to any idiosyncrasy of an actor on stage. With film, though, it's different. In film, the choice is controlled. A close-up on a bead of sweat, a wink, a smile. This is all decided for us. Plus, film is more like a time machine. In an instant, Stanley Kubrick can transport us from the birth of simian intelligence to a spaceship bound for Jupiter. Christopher Nolan unwinds a narrative story, half of the story traveling backwards, the other half moving forwards in time. Ang Lee places us in the ocean with a tiger and an orangutan and makes us spend time with each. Each of these things is easier to do with film. Film, in my opinion, is much more like a dream than reality, taking us against our will to different times and different places, introducing us to images and individuals that we often never expect to see. And in that way, film is more like literature. Great films and great books transport our imaginations literally anywhere. Books also guide our vision, telling us exactly how something looks, that smile, that wink, that bead of sweat. They paint beautiful visuals. They evoke unusual sounds, and they take us inside the mind of the characters. But literature can only do one of these things at a time, and usually only to an audience of one, the reader. Yes, I know, you can read a book out loud, but film? Film takes visuals and juxtaposes them against the auditory. Characters juxtaposed against each other, juxtaposed against their environment, their thoughts juxtaposed against their actions, sometimes all in one moment, all in one glance, one gesture. So film can be an affront. You can't just put down a film on the nightstand and dog-ear the page and come back later. I mean, when you sit down in the theater, you and all the people surrounding you have made a commitment that for the next 2 hours, you are going to ride along with the filmmaker. You're strapping into the roller coaster. And yeah, you can walk out and you can leave and you can come back. But if the movie is as good as you hope it's going to be, you're not going to want to. Like well-dressed concertgoers enjoying an orchestra playing a Mozart concerto, you're sitting shoulder to shoulder with others committing to the experience. The music, the art, it carries you away, floating on your own imagination. A story unfolds, or at least it does for me when I listen to music. But that's the rub with music. Left to our own devices, we each take away something different from the musical performance. Yeah, we each hear the same thing, but we think something completely different. With film, we each experience the same thing at the same time, collectively. Now, we may interpret the story differently, but we have a tangibly similar experience, you and I, and the stranger sitting behind me eating popcorn. That is to say that millions of people saw the same Amadeus that Milos Forman saw in his own imagination. But not everyone experiences Mozart's piano concerto in the same way. Even at the same performance, the way that one hears the piece, the emotions and thoughts evoked by the music can be widely different based on the individual's mental factors. Music sets us on an emotional journey, but it does not determine our destination the way that film does. What about other visual forms? Painting, photography, sculpture. How does film compare to those? Great works of visual art, such as Vermeer paintings or a photograph by Sally Mann, or perhaps Rodin's The Thinker, they each tell a story, or at least they allow us to imagine a story that we find within ourselves. But they do so in a fixed moment. They're not movies. They do not move. Movies, talkies. These are pictures that talk and move. They have a temporal resonance like a concerto, but they also have visual permanence like a picture. Permanence in the sense that you can return to them and they are consistent. For all the glories of great theater, great literature, great music, and great art, film offers us an experience that no other artistic medium can approach.